I was just chatting with a couple of my fellow truck drivers about politics, and it's funny, one of them wanted to blame moms for entering the workforce for why we don't have as good a wages as we used to. And I was explaining that that's a drop in the bucket compared to how much hedge fund managers are making and other fat cats at the top. And I told him not to feel bad, but there's no way to know that stuff from watching the news. Neither the donkeys nor the elephants are going to tell you the truth about who's really to blame. They want us to blame each other. That was interesting. It's funny, when I have a conversation like that, it feels like the powers, the metaphysical powers, if you will, and some of you won't, don't like me to talk about things like that. And I feel this kind of foreboding on their part, if I'm connected to them somehow. The way Harry was, whenever Lord Voldemort, if you say it right, whenever he was angry, Harry could feel it. And I think I have that kind of connection sometimes to the powers, metaphysically speaking. And even if they're physical, I still feel connected to them through that unconscious collective that Jung talked about. I know it's woo-woo stuff, quantum physics kind of stuff, but I feel connected to my enemies. And when I'm getting things right, when I'm starting to not feel apprehensive or anxious, they start to feel apprehensive and anxious. And that's a problem, because I've been trained by them to be nervous when they're nervous. Making them nervous, they want to make me nervous. It shouldn't be a good idea for me to cause them anxiety. So I have to rework the way I feel emotionally. I have to rework my emotions so that I'm comfortable pissing them off. I'm comfortable making them nervous. And it works with the nemesis we can see too. If we have people that we are in contact with more than just casually, they get upset when we are not upsettable. If we've been controlled by anybody and then suddenly they can't make us anxious, then they can't control us, and that makes them anxious, and that's a good thing. I felt it while I was operating the pallet jack in there in ShopRite. I felt like, ooh, I'm really making people nervous. And always in the past that would translate to me feeling nervous. The pressure I feel, and for no reason that I could understand growing up, that pressure that's on sometimes, and for me it was on almost continually. I always felt like I was about to fuck up, and that I should be nervous and looking over my shoulder and making sure the other shoe wasn't about to drop and all that. And that kind of superstitious nonsense is, you know, it's good to get rid of that if you're going to stop being controlled. Stop feeling anxious just because they want you to feel anxious. And as always, I'm talking, I'm sure, mostly to myself. But this will help me when I go back and listen to it again. I talked recently about the Blue Rhino Employee Handbook, saying that employees should work with a sense of urgency. And that applies for corporate masters, that applies for domineering spouses, that applies for any control freaks in your life, physical or metaphysical. They want you to work and live and breathe with a sense of urgency. So if you figure out how to be calm, cool, and collected, you will mess with them. They don't want that. That's not in their interests, for you not to be flappable. Probably the best thing you can do, rather than whine and complain about your conditions, is just to figure out how to never get upset. Be nonplussed all the time. So to sum it up, you win win by staying calm.
In half a mile, exit right.
Your enemies will fall to pieces. They'll wave the surrender flag. They'll hand you the keys to the castle. And you don't have to land a blow or fire a shot. You just have to remain nonplussed. Nobody ever told me this. I always thought I had to be a tremendous warrior. If I stay calm, and I do have to land a blow, I'll be able to do it. I won't miss. I won't swing wildly. My efforts will be calculated and cunning and efficient. I won't waste motion.
In 0.1 miles, exit right.
There's a sneaky speed limit right here. Even though it looks like a ramp.
Take the ramp on the right to Route 440 South toward 287.
She even called it a ramp. But if you go faster than 25 as you're winding yourself up to get on the freeway, you will incur the wrath of the safety gods. It's still 25. This is where you'd be accelerating. Now it stops. So now you're on a ramp, which technically don't have speed limits. And the trucks that can photograph the speed limit signs and tattle on you, they sometimes count the ramp suggested speeds as speed limits, and then they tattle if you go faster. What in the fuck is the world coming to? You need to keep functioning, but that isn't that difficult when you're not anxious about anything. You need to make the right decisions and execute whatever your duties are well, but that's a piece of cake when you're calm, cool, and collected. And if you are, you'll have more brain power to think of ways to cause trouble. If you're not worried about anything, then you're not waiting for inevitable crises that never come. So with that extra brain power, you think of ways to keep doing what you're doing, plus disrupt the powers. You rattle their cages. You make them wonder what you're up to. And eventually, with enough of that happening at the same time, we will topple them. And then there will be something more like freedom than what we have now. And if you are biding your time waiting for optimal conditions, or more optimal, this is a great strategy, keeping your spirits up, because then you end up with more wherewithal, more pluck, more courage. You don't feel like you have to change your circumstances to affect the change in your emotions. You change your emotions, and then you notice you have more power to change your circumstances. Because otherwise you rush into things. You say, well, I'm not happy right now in my current situation, in my current living situation, or work situation, what have you. And for me to be happy, for me to not melt down and have a heart attack or a, I don't know, nerve attack, nervous, what do you call that? Nervous breakdown. For me not to have a nervous breakdown, I have to change my circumstances. That may not be true. You might just say, oh, I'm fine because I'm biding my time. I'll know the right moment when I see it. And in the meantime, I'm happy. You know, what difference does it make what your circumstances are if you're happy? And then when you're happy, it's not difficult to change your circumstances. I noticed the biggest obstacle for me being chill enough to rattle the cages of my adversaries is I take myself too seriously. A nihilistic way of thinking of life is no lives matter, especially not mine. And if I have that orientation, I can look at life and say, if my life doesn't matter, and your life doesn't matter, and this is just a big game we're
Construction
playing,
was reported on
then
US
nothing matters,
222.
and there's no reason not to be chill. We should always just be chill. We should enjoy what is enjoyable. We shouldn't do things that aren't enjoyable to please other people. I don't think we should be trying to get brownie points. When I get in altercations with other drivers or with the people around me and my family or wherever I am, it's because I think I've been wrong. And I can't be wrong if I don't exist. If I matter so little, if I'm just a grain of sand or even tinier from the perspective of the cosmos, I don't matter. Nothing I do matters. And if I see that, if I have that perspective, I don't get my tail in a knot, my panties in a wad. I just don't see the need to do that, to waste energy on that. That's the Shaker song. It's the gift to be simple. When we come round to that place just right, it's because we've lost ourselves. We've given up ourselves. We've let go and said, I don't matter. That doesn't mean we take shit, but it doesn't mean that we care either. So we can calmly defend ourselves, defend our space, our rights to breathe the air and drink the water, to take up the psychological space allotted. But we don't have to think it's important. We can just do it as a matter of principle. That disarms people who take themselves seriously, who are narcissists trying to control you. When you don't take it seriously, they don't really know what to do about it. And they want to prod you and goad you into taking yourself seriously enough to be offended so that they can control you. I think about Crush, the turtle in Finding Nemo. He just doesn't care. He's a benevolent, kind soul, very old. He's like the Kung Fu Panda master.
Hazard reported ahead.
He just doesn't care. And he doesn't take shit either. But if shit comes his way, he's not surprised, and he's not offended. I'd like to present that front to people who care too much about things and want to control me with that care. The people who say, this is really, really important.
Police reported ahead.
Police are out in droves today. I don't want to waste any effort or energy feeling wrong. I don't want to be butthurt about anything. I don't want to feel offended. I just don't want to waste my time with that. I need to tell myself some things. This has been a big day for you. You see how it is with people who try too hard to get other people to approve of them. They try too hard to keep people from being angry with them. They try too hard to appease people. They're nice, they're weak because they care so much about other people's approval. It weakens them. It puts them in a position where they have to give up their own autonomy, their own agency, in order to please other people. They make themselves less attractive because weak isn't attractive. And that's how it is with nice guys and girls. They are weak, and the reason I think they try so hard to get other people to approve of them is because they take themselves too seriously. They make the mistake of thinking that they matter, that their life is important. If you think that nothing matters, no one matters, you'll put yourself in a lot better place to not be controlled by people. I guess that's the whole point, or at least that's the strategy that solves everything, is to realize not to take yourself too seriously. Because that's really the root problem of being a nice guy. You take yourself too seriously, and that's what makes you worry so much about what other people think. And then you try too hard. And it weakens you. It weakens your position. Sometimes I wish my current self could go back and visit my earlier self at various times when I really needed some whatever knowledge or wisdom I've acquired lately. There were so many times in my life, especially with relationships and in dealing with my parents, dealing with employers, dealing with life. I just needed help. I needed some guidance. I needed to believe the person who was saying it. Hopefully, I wouldn't have taken myself so seriously that I would miss out on hearing what my future self had to tell me. I would be humble enough. But that's the main thing I needed to learn all the way through, is how to be humble enough. And then I would have figured everything else out. The mental part, the cerebral part of solving the problem isn't as difficult as just not taking yourself too seriously. Everything else just solves itself then. It isn't a matter of being smart. Smart people aren't happier. Talented people aren't happier. People who have everything aren't happier. People who don't take themselves too seriously are the happy people. Those windmills aren't taking themselves too seriously. It's okay to take a break sometimes. They've probably been toiling all through the night, and I just didn't realize it. I shut Darmin's volume off, so she won't have the last word today. The world enjoys laughing at people who take themselves too seriously. It's so easy to laugh at someone in that setting, and they hate it so much. I'm gonna have to remember that. I've noticed some guys are nervous, girls too, when they see people doing well. I talked about one of my students who was upset because someone had done so well in class, and she laughingly said, "I hate you," because I guess he outshone her and she didn't like it. And we had a long discussion about that. Like, why would you hate somebody for doing well? And I think that can be traced back to the problem we were just talking about. They take themselves too seriously. So they hate somebody who seems to be doing well, which really seems like a waste of time and effort. Like, if I'm backing up and this guy's watching me back up, and I'm doing it too smoothly and skillfully, like if I do it in one shot, which I'm not because I didn't set up, it'll be close though, but I didn't set it up right to do it in one shot. But if I got it in one shot right in front of him, it'd almost be like an affront. Like he'd be, and I didn't, he'd be like, how dare you do something so well right in front of me? As it is, I did it well. Only one pull forward, and it's all lined up now, like smooth, like Buddha. It's like being good at something almost makes you a target. He couldn't even look at me as he went by. I don't know why I felt that energy coming off of him somehow. I don't want to be like that. I want to be happy when other people are doing well and feeling successful and competent. Have you ever had a teacher who was threatened by your success, even as they were giving it to you, even as they were responsible for you being successful? They also at the same time felt threatened by it. And while I'm talking to myself, I have to tell you, this is going to cause pressure to rise from the other people, from the other entities. You figuring this out will put pressure on them. And then they'll want that pressure to come to you, and they'll want you to be affected by it. And they'll panic if you aren't. So just get ready for that. Enjoy it, and at the same time, don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Crass. Confident, relaxed, assured, strong, and steady.